The Detroit Lions are about to see a massive boost to their defensive line and their pass rush after the NFL trade deadline. Not only did the Detroit Lions trade for Zarius Smith at the deadline, bringing in a reliable, quality veteran pass rusher to finish plays and bring some pass rush back to Detroit, but they're also welcoming back two starting caliber players that have missed the last couple of games in Josh Pascal, who has missed the last two games due to an illness, as well as Mekhi Wingo, who was unable to go to Green Bay due to an injury suffered late into the week. The Lions are now welcoming back not one, not two, but potentially three brand new pass rushers that were previously unavailable for the last couple of games. And adding that to a defense that is already playing at an extremely high level makes this defensive front and makes this Detroit Lions defense one of the scariest units in the NFL again. Now, today we're going to take a look at not only the Zarius Smith trade, but also what the Detroit Lions defensive line looks like now that they are fully healthy and a little bit recharged. We're going to take a look at what Zarius Smith does to the defense, as well as where the defense has been in their 14 quarters without Aiden Hutchinson. So, with that being said, let's get in and kick it off with the Zarius Smith trade overall. Right, early on Tuesday morning, the Detroit Lions made a trade. They decided that the pass rushers that they had available were not enough and that they needed a veteran presence. Coming in is Zarius Smith from the Cleveland Browns, a veteran pass rusher at 31 years old. He's played about 13 seasons in the NFL at this point, if I remember correctly. And the Detroit Lions got him as well as a seventh round selection in this year's draft for the low price of just a fifth round pick and a sixth round pick in the future. Essentially, a fifth round selection for Zarius Smith straight up, which turns out to be a pretty good value for the veteran pass rusher. Now, Zarius Smith is a fantastic player, right? A three-time Pro Bowler with 65 career sacks, 82 tackles for loss, 10 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and 163 quarterback hits across his career. And in 2024, he's playing just as well, right? 9 games, 5 sacks, 6 TFLs, 7 quarterback hits, and 27 pressures makes Zarius Smith one of the better edge rushing twos in the NFL and really makes him what the Lions need him to be, a reliable veteran that can put up sacks, that can finish plays, and can add an element of the pass rush back to a Detroit Lions defense that has struggled with that over the last 3 to 4 games. Now, on top of costing the Detroit Lions just a fifth round selection, his contract is really manageable. In 2024, the Lions are going to pay him just $605,000 out of their cap space. That is next to nothing. That is nearly half of the veteran minimum that they would have paid had they gotten him on the cheapest possible contract out of free agency. And in 2025, while it does take a pretty substantial jump, it is just a $5.7 million cap hit, which none of it is guaranteed. Meaning, if they would like to do so, the Detroit Lions can release Zarius Smith with zero financial compensation and get him entirely off the books as early as this upcoming offseason. Now, with that being the case, the Detroit Lions have been pretty good without a pass rush, right? In 14 quarters, they have just a singular sack from their defensive line. That one in sole sack coming from Josh Pascal in the second quarter of the Minnesota Vikings game. And since then, the defensive line has yet to record a sack. It has been nearly 10 entire quarters since the Lions have been able to do so. That does not sound good. That sounds like a defense that has been struggling, but in fact, the opposite is true. In that time span since Aiden Hutchinson's injury, the Detroit Lions have played 14 full quarters. They may only have one sack from their defensive line, but in that time, they are 4-0, allowing less than 15 points per game with 11 takeaways on the defensive side of the ball, and only one of those 4 contests ended in a one-score game. They have been one of the best defenses in the NFL since losing Aiden Hutchinson. They were already really good with him, but actually they've taken a statistical jump in points per game allowed and turnovers forced since number 97 has been unavailable. in week 10, as we mentioned, the Detroit Lions will be welcoming in not one, not two, but potentially three pass rushers that were unavailable against Green Bay, and maybe even a fourth defensive lineman if Broderick Martin is able to return. His practice window has officially been opened, but we know for a fact that Josh Paschal is starting to recover from his illness, that Mekhi Wingo, being questionable last week, is potentially able to return this week versus the Houston Texans. And then, of course, you add Zarius Smith, a pass rusher who is already at 5 sacks on the season, that is known to be a finisher on the defensive side of the ball. So the Lions pass rush goes from starting guys like Al-Kayan Muhammad and Isaiah Thomas and James Houston to now starting Josh Paschal, Zarius Smith, and Levi Onwuzurike on the edge, with Broderick Martin and DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil on the interior, with Mekhi Wingo being that pass rushing third down specialist. The defensive line looks substantially better. They look incredible in comparison to what took the field in Green Bay, and that is only going to make the Detroit Lions defense scarier than it already was. The Lions starting defensive line going into Houston is going to be Zarius Smith and Josh Paschal on the edges, assuming Josh Paschal has recovered from his illness. DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil on the interior as your two starting defensive tackles, with a healthy rotation of Levi Onwuzurike, who's been fantastic this year for the Lions as a inside-outside versatile piece, with Trevor Nowaske, a player that through just a couple of games starting already has 2 sacks and an interception and has been really, really good filling in at that Sam linebacker position, as well as Mekhi Wingo, who is returning from injury, who is yet to record a sack, but based off of his pass rush win rate, based off of the tape, is one of the most impressive third down options and one of the most impressive late round draft steals that we've seen from the 2025 class. Compare that to last week, where they took the field starting James Houston and Isaiah Thomas. The pass rush in the defensive line looks much, much stronger. And while, yeah, Zarius Smith isn't going to come in and be Aiden Hutchinson, he's not going to come in and put up 12, 15 pressures in a game with 2 to 3 sacks. This is a player that I think is right on par with Marcus Davenport, right on par with what we expected Marcus Davenport to be for the Detroit Lions. And I think that is what Zarius Smith will bring. He will bring a quality, high-end edge rusher 2 prototype to the Detroit Lions to pair with Josh Paschal, who is also playing really good football at this point as a probably middle to lower-end edge rusher 2. So while they don't have an elite player at the edge rushing position, they now have 2 quality starting players that can fill in the role as needed, as well as Levi Onwuzurike, who can rotate between the interior and the exterior. They are now, with the addition of Zarius Smith, significantly deeper at the edge rushing position and much, much more talented than they would have been otherwise. And again, let's go back to the statistics, right? This is the Lions defense with 0 pass rush. The Lions over the last 4 games have had less than 40 pressures as a team, and again, only recorded a single sack from their defensive line. So you take this team, a defense that over the last month has allowed 15 points per game with 11 turnovers and 1 game coming down to 1 score, and a perfect 4-0 record. And now you add 2 quality pass rushers on the edge, pairing that with an already elite defensive tackle duo, adding it to an already really good run defense. The Lions just got better. The Lions, the best team in the NFL, just got better as a result of this trade. And I think that that makes it one of the scariest trades at the NFL deadline. Zarius Smith is older. He's certainly a veteran. He's certainly not in his pass rushing prime. But if he can finish the season with 10, 11 sacks, I think it would be well worth it for the Detroit Lions to have made that trade. And that will put the Lions in position very firmly for the 1 seed of the NFC playoff race. So with that being said, I give this grade a B+. This is a low-risk trade with nice immediate return, a cheap deal, fills an immediate need, fills potentially a need for the 2025 season when you compare him with Aiden Hutchinson, much like the Browns did with Myles Garrett. And I think overall that this trade was quite good. Why a B+ and not an A- or an A? I think they could have potentially gone a little bit younger. There are guys like Azeez Ojulari out there with similar numbers. There are guys like Arden Key out there with similar numbers that are a little bit younger. But overall, this is the trade that was available. This is the trade that was offered to the Detroit Lions. And I think they made the right decision in taking that trade, making the most of it, and putting enough talent on the field, right? Doing what they need to do to put talent on the field to win football games. As they travel to Houston this week, I have a lot of confidence that the pass rush will look significantly improved. If Josh Pascal is back, I think that adds an element of a chaos player that crashes the pocket and makes everything dangerous, while you add Zarius Smith, a player that can clean up those dangerous plays, a player that can finish and actually put the quarterback on the ground. Adding those two players back to the Detroit Lions defensive line makes them a very, very dangerous unit for a team that's already been playing some top tier football. So, with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. The Detroit Lions adding not one, not two, but three pass rushers back to this defense as they travel to Houston next week. Already playing like one of the best teams in football, and they got even better. So, let me know down in the comments below what you think about this trade, what you think it means for the Lions' future, and of course, what grade you would give it as a fan of the Detroit Lions. I'm curious to hear your guys' opinions, but with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.